Hi, and welcome to Thursday Comics. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design. Today's comic is Journey into Mystery with Thor, number 103. I don't own an original copy of that comic, but I have the next best thing, the Thor King Size Special number 2, which has a reprint of the main story from Thor number 103. So let's get to it. So here it is, the mighty Thor menaced by the Enchantress and the Executioner. It's the first appearance of those two characters. This opening splash page is shrunken down a little bit to accommodate this little, originally presented in Journey into Mystery number 103, April 1964 call out. The credits say, written by Stan Lee, Master of Fantasy, illustrated by Jack Kirby, Master of Pictodrama, inked by Chick Stone, lettered by Sam Rosen. And as usual, Jack Kirby did more than just illustrate the story. He's a co-writer on it, in spite of what the credits say. And so now Thor is returning from the far future in the previous issue when he dealt with Zarko the Tomorrow Man, a feature-length Marvel masterpiece of compelling excellence. Swinging his enchanted hammer at twice the speed of light, the mighty Thor leaves the future where we left him last issue and travels back through time, back at mind-staggering speed, until, at last, I've returned to the 20th century. I wonder what new perils await me. And wait till you see, because it's pretty cool. So yeah, Thor's all worn out from the trip. Even a thunder god gets wiped out from traveling twice the speed of light under his own power. I'll have to ask you to move on, Thor. You're causing a traffic jam. I understand, officer. My strength has returned, so stay back while I swing my hammer. I'll be gone within seconds. Wow, it feels like a tornado blowing up. Not too long ago, we read Forever People number 2, which, starts out with a similar setup of, there's a super character causing a traffic jam, and he's got to move along because he's disturbing the peace. So he flies up. Great panel. Nice job tilting the landscape to really give a sense of motion. Thor taps his hammer to turn back into Don Blake, this time with hammer head down. I don't know that we've seen that before. And as exhausted as Thor was, Don Blake is just that much more exhausted, being a mere mortal. And Jane sees this, and she tells him to go sleep on the couch. She sets up a pillow for him, and she thinks, if only I could do this for him always. But though I'm sure he loves me, for some strange reason, he never suggests marriage. And so we get a nice flashback of the previous issue and a nice montage as Don Blake is having nightmares about the previous issue's events. And now back in Asgard, Odin, in yet another awesome suit of armor, is contemplating, although I am ruler of the gods, I have failed to drive the love for Jane Foster from the heart of Thor. Loki has a suggestion. I have a plan which may succeed, noble Odin. Perhaps if Thor meets one who is more beautiful, more desirable, he will forget the mortal girl. And here in Asgard is just such a one. Of course, the Enchantress. And so, I should have thought of this long ago. The Enchantress may succeed where brute force has failed. This kind of reminds me of when Sprite of the Eternals goes to find the Forgotten One. Minutes later, Loki speaks to one whose beauty is deemed to be more than any mortal man can resist. Only I know that the beauty of your form and face are matched only by the cruelty and ambition of your scheming heart. And so I have a mission for you, my lovely one. Odin commands you to go to Earth and win the heart of the one called Don Blake. Thus will you also gain the love of Thor as well. So this is, the most sexually charged image, the most sexually charged sequence in any Thor comic so far. I don't know if, Kirby had just seen, the 7-Year Itch or something, or maybe, an early issue of Playboy or something. But, this is, the pose, the fur rug that she's laying on, and then even some symbolism, Loki sort of holding his, horny hat, How you must hate the mighty thunder god, Loki. I know 'twas you who gave this plan to Odin, but no matter. I shall carry out this mission, for long have I wished to conquer the heart of handsome Thor. Ah, my beautiful one, what a team we would make, if only. Do not say it, Loki. We are too much alike. We could never trust each other. True, Enchantress, for I know you would turn against me too, any time it suited your merciless fancy. I mean, this scene, the sort of, heavily charged sexuality, which, for a 1960s Comics Code approved story is pretty strong. And where the panel border is cut off, it looks like I'm not sure what's going on with the Enchantress's hand, and from the look on Loki's face, who knows. This also kind of reminds me. I wonder if the creators of the Wizards and Warriors TV show were thinking of this scene, because there's similar scenes in that show where sort of the evil wizard talks to the evil witch, and they kind of have this sort of sexual tension and chemistry, and this reminds me a lot of that. So she comes to Earth, makes a real stir, gets some modern clothes, a big fur coat and bracelet, and shows up at Don Blake's office, dismisses Jane Foster. Great body language here, and Jane she has a feeling something is up. The Enchantress asks Don Blake to examine her wrist, and then she, again, more, sort of body language. And then she pretends to faint, and he catches her. And Jane walks in and is shocked, drops what she was holding, and slams the door. And Don Blake goes to find her to explain everything. So sort of the sort of romantic comedy misunderstanding portion of the story is pretty much done. And in this panel here, Don Blake realizes, oh, this is the Enchantress. I'm not sure if that was the intent for Kirby. I don't, I think it would make more sense to sort of save that for later and just have this. It seems to me like a bad time for that reveal, that, we could sort of save that information for later, but, it's fine. And so anyway, this part of the plot is kind of wrapped up pretty quickly. And it makes me think that when Walt Simonson did his famous second run on Thor, one of his first orders of business was to, have a similar setup, a similar plot, except there, by that point, the Enchantress was sort of a well-known character in Thor's pantheon. And so instead he introduced a new character, the Enchantress's younger sister, Lorelei. And it was the same basic thing. She's like, I'm, at the behest of Loki, she's going to go and seduce Thor. And she does. She's successful. And then it becomes, sort of a running plot throughout the series. And she becomes, Thor's girlfriend. And I do wonder if, Walt Simonson was reading this story and thought, as I do reading it, that, this very interesting subplot and sort of, possible love triangle just gets, such a rushed treatment, and that it could really be something that you could milk over, over several issues. The Enchantress has been rebuffed, and so she goes back to Asgard. So long as Jane Foster lives, Thor will never succumb to my charms. And so the only solution is Jane Foster must not live. Here in Asgard dwells one who can remove the mortal girl for me. Here I will find the Executioner. Now that sounds very foreboding, and I really love the look of the Executioner's hut off in some corner of Asgard. Again, like the Forgotten One's hovel in Eternals, in a dark corner of Olympia. I got to say, so far I'm loving this issue. This becomes an ongoing format for Thor's stories, and some of the best stories where, some new menace from Asgard, from his hometown, comes to Earth and starts causing trouble. So here we have this, very impressive looking new character, the Executioner, and then he takes off his mask and he's got, kind of a cool looking face too, a really cool haircut. Kirby's just so good at drawing all this sort of, medieval looking stuff. Very, he was a huge Hal Foster fan, big fan of Prince Valiant. The Executioner has this like giant mitt and he's holding a picture of Jane Foster to know who his target is. And I love how tiny this picture looks in his giant Kirby mitt. Study that picture. I took it from the desk of Don Blake. It is his nurse Jane. I wish him never to be able to set eyes on her again. Now, so this guy's got a giant axe. His name is the Executioner. So this is pretty scary. Jane Foster is marked for death or something. And so, the Executioner is walking from the Rainbow Bridge to Earth. And so, that becomes the mechanism for these stories is, somebody coming to Earth from the Rainbow Bridge or from Earth to Asgard, much like the boom tube functions in the New Gods stories. So Don Blake goes to visit Jane's apartment. Her landlady says, she doesn't know where she is. So he changes into Thor. He figures Thor will do a better job of finding her. Thor, goes to the police station to put out an APB to find Jane Foster. And he finds out the Executioner is menacing people. And here he is looking very, very scary, very cool in this crowd. In the 90s, they gave the Executioner a remake. They gave him they updated his look. I mean, he's very, very menacing, very cool in his sort of original design. But in 90s, they tried to give him sort of a sort of like Ghost Rider makeover, where he started having a bunch of chains and I think they started calling him Blood Axe or something. They changed his name, but I mean, I love this original look. And then the inevitable occurs. The face of Jane Foster is observed as a gargantuan arm reaches out and, I have found her. Now he's swinging his axe, and you think, this is it. Jane Foster's toast. But you realize, the way he executes is not the traditional way of, cutting off someone's head. He swings his axe, which has the power to cut through reality, cut through dimensions, and creates a dimensional vortex that she gets sucked into. So she's more or less executed. She's sort of, consigned, trapped in limbo, the half world between here and there, which is like a cool sort of, sci-fi twist on this. I like the idea of an executioner who has an axe that's so sharp it can, cut the membrane of reality. Using his axe to cut through time and space rather than frail human flesh, the Executioner whirls it about him at fantastic speed, creating a blinding, spinning vortex. So, yeah, I mean, Stan Lee says it, 100 times better than I ever could. Thor shows up and, throws his hammer at the Executioner, and it is on. A battle of titans, and just great, great super combat. And this becomes kind of the format of Thor going forward. Is some kind of powerhouse, usually from Asgard, but maybe from someplace else. Thor has to duke it out in intense combat on the streets of New York. Now, in this case, the battle gets wrapped up, pretty quickly and cleanly, where in future issues, the battles will, rage on for multiple issues. Thor really, becomes sort of a battle book, and I think it works. It works for me. My battle axe still possesses the power to slash through space, as it now does to bring the frost from the Earth's Arctic regions. So he freezes Thor. Thor breaks out, and then the Executioner gets ready to swing his axe again, but before he can, Thor throws his hammer and knocks it out of his hand. Some very cool panel, very inventive use of the medium. Thor has him at his mercy. He's disarmed. On your knees, Executioner, down, I say. The battle is over and won. The time for the reckoning is here. Stay your hand, mighty Thor. Slaying me will avail you nothing. But if you would have me return the girl, I will make you an offer. Speak then, wicked one. For ages I have longed for your hammer. I desire it more than anything on earth or Asgard. If you pledge it to me, I shall return the girl. If not, you lose her forever. So Thor thinks about it, and he knows what happens if he gives up his hammer. He turns back into Don Blake. And so he agrees, and the Executioner brings back Jane Foster. Now that the Executioner has Thor's hammer, he can't really do anything with it. He's not strong enough to lift it, and he's not worthy, so he's just struggling to pull it off the ground. And then his arms turn into, tree limbs. Again, Kirby doing the, human tree thing that he's so good at. The Executioner is now turning completely into a tree, as Thor almost did in the previous Tales of Asgard. We find out that the Enchantress was at the bottom of it. "You still live, Executioner? Then I shall work another spell on you." The Enchantress is angry at the Executioner for failing in his mission and bringing back Jane Foster. And then the Enchantress threatens to turn Thor's hammer into a snake, but he tells her she has no power over this because it's made by Odin. Swings his hammer to sort of banish the two of them back to Asgard with a vortex. "Once again, I shall become the mortal Dr. Don Blake and return to my beloved." "Well, if it isn't Dr. Blake, how is your new blonde girlfriend, Doctor?" "Jane, she was nothing to me. Let me explain." We got the icicles forming in the word balloon. "No need to explain. You're not married to me. You're free to kiss any glamour girl you want to. As for me, I happen to be waiting for Thor. Perhaps you won't mind if I wait with you, Jane." And so they go strolling down the avenue, arm in arm, and Odin sees this. "So, still they are in love? By Asgard, my son may not love a mortal. Thor may not defy his father Odin. The time for words is past. Now I must act." We have to wait until the next issue to find out how he does act. This reprint has a special blurb that wasn't in the original comic, and act he did, as we Marvelites have noticed, for issue after issue after issue. Now, who says this isn't the Marvel age of sheer consistency? This from the perspective of a couple of years of Thor comics, where Odin, continually punishes Thor for his disobedience. So that's the main story. And now we're going to read the Tales of Asgard part, which I have in this Tales of Asgard collection. So this one's really fun. We have Chick Stone inking a Tales of Asgard for the first time, and it looks amazing. The color's really nice, too. I love the shadows and things. And we get sort of like a, Thor in sort of a Lord of the Rings kind of story. I mean, of course, Lord of the Rings is sort of, referencing, like the Ring of the Nibelungs and that kind of thing. So it's all coming full circle. But I look at this and it's like, it just is such a sweet spot, "Take me to Sindri, your king. Here in the land of the dwarves are forged all the enchanted weapons of Asgard. Follow us, mighty Thor. King Sindri awaits you." Amazing costumes and sort of, ancient technology of these like bellows of the sort of, smelting, sword making. Thor's mission to Mimir. This is the tale of Thor's odyssey to Mimir, one of the strangest missions ever undertaken by mortal or godling. Our saga begins with Thor's arrival in the heart of the Asgard Mountains, where dwell the subjects of Sindri, king of the dwarves. Masterfully written by Stan Lee, magnificently illustrated by Jack Kirby, majestically inked by Chick Stone, meritoriously lettered by Art Simic. And again, Kirby is, at the very least, a co-writer of these stories, and even though he doesn't get credited as such. And so Sindri has had his craftsman create a magical boat called Skip Blodnir, which is so tiny it can fit, Thor can fit it in between his two fingers, but when it's needed, it can turn into a full-sized flying ship. Reaching the dangerous dark sea which surrounds the land of Mimir, the enchanted vessel stops, for only by traveling on foot may he enter the mysterious realm. This land is fraught with macabre dangers, but I shall not shirk my task. I mean, I love this stuff, this whole, quest with, Kirby's amazing artwork, design, storytelling. And it could be another, sort of Dungeons and Dragons campaign. He's got his new magical object. He goes to this mysterious island. There's a sort of pterodactyl dragon kind of thing. Suddenly, Thor hears the beating of gigantic wings as Skord, the flying dragon, swoops down to attack. And then he hits a stone that goes flying into Skord's mouth and blocks it up. Then he's walking through this tall grass. And and comes face to face with Gullin, mightiest of the boar gods. Mike Mignola references this exact panel in one of the early Hellboy stories where Hellboy fights, a similar creature. And now Thor's having this, titanic battle of the gods here. Again, so much drama. We move through it at such a rapid clip, just constant invention. Kirby's really, creating an amazing world. And then Thor's hammer shatters the boar god's hammer, and now he, sort of runs away. Thor's following the stream and finds who he's looking for. And finally, at the head of the stream, behind the mystic fountain which feeds all the world's oceans, Thor finds the one he seeks. Thor, it is you. Does that mean my moment is at hand? Yes, noble Odin has sent you this message. You must do what you are pledged to do. Odin has sent this branch from Yggdrasil, the tree of life. You know what must be done. So be it. Mimir will be true to his sacred trust. Give me the magic branch. And so he stirs this this water of life with this branch, and then the water flows down to earth where it falls on two trees, and the water transforms those two trees into Aska and Embla, the sort of Adam and Eve of the Norse cosmology. These are the first human beings. These are our ancestors, according to the Norse mythology. And lo, the trees slowly change form until where stood an alder and an ash, we now see the proud figures of Aska and Embla, destined to start a new race in the image of the immortals of Asgard. Thus, his mission accomplished, the mighty Thor returns to his home in Asgard to await the newer and more startling tasks which Odin has in store. And so there's that ship flying past the sun. Just a beautiful little slice of pop art myth-making. Editor's note, freely translated, the tale you have just read is part of the Norse legends, which deal with the birth of mankind and the days before the beginning of time. The end. So yeah, this is a stellar A+ issue. The main story is amazing. We get the introduction of two, super cool characters who are still, major parts of Thor's story to this very day, with just incredible costumes. There's a an increased sexual component, which has been completely absent from this series up to this point. The amazing Chickstone inks and just this really great Tales of Asgard. I mean, please, somebody make a Tales of Asgard, Thor animated series or something, or live action or whatever, where we can see all of these little stories play out, because I think the drawing is beautiful, the storytelling is beautiful, and it's an aesthetic that you can't really get anywhere else except from Jack Kirby. A+. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby: The Epic Life of the King of Comics and Fantastic Four Grand Design, and I'll see you next Thursday.